Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have a review of the season finale of Star Trek Discovery Season 3, That Hope Is You Part 2. So to warn you now, there will be spoilers within this review, so if you haven't seen the finale episode or haven't caught up with all of the episodes within the third season, I advise you to stop watching now, go away, catch up with all the episodes and then come back to this review. So the setup we have here is that we pick up of the events within the previous episode, where Osayara now has taken over Discovery and she's transported over to Starfleet looking to negotiate a unity command with the Admiral of Starfleet. We saw Michael eject Jdans from Discovery to ensure that Osayara couldn't get control of the spore drive. We had a very emotional scene. Jdans was very distraught and upset because we have the other members of the crew within the nebula trying to calm down Su'Kal, who we found out in the previous episode was the child Kelpian responsible for the origin of the burn. So Jdans doesn't want to abandon them, but Michael of course took the sensible decision to eject him in order to make sure that Osayara couldn't get control of the spore drive. And we also concluded with the event of Tilly coming across the three kind of droids, or they're called Dot 23s, and somehow the sphere data, as we know from the previous season, has been transferred onto them, and they look to aid Tilly as the Discovery crew look to work together to try and regain control of the ship. So we go on to the current episode, and I think overall it was a very standard and very formulaic, almost by the numbers finale. There was a bit of action and effects as usual, what you would get in Discovery, but it kind of felt a bit lower in scale if you compare it to the previous two finales. We pick up with the story overall where we have Starfleet going out all assault on the Discovery, which is aided by Osayara now, and we have various kind of big space battles between the Discovery and the Villainous ship as it's battling all Starfleet and Federation as they're trying to get control of the ship again. We get lots of high octane shootouts, and we see later on with Tilly working together with the Dot 23s and the West Discovery crew, taking out certain of Osayara's forces within the ship, and they're trying to regain control of Discovery. We later on see Jdans, and he pleads with the Admiral to go back to the nebula to rescue Saru, Culber, but the Admiral rejects this suggestion at first because once again we have to preserve Jdans to make sure nobody can get control of the spore drive. Later on, Burnham pleads with the Admiral under the duress of Osayara to cease the attack, trying to obviously save the Discovery crew, and they later on torture Book because the scientist on the ship has determined now that Book is empathetic, so he has potential now to control the spore drive. So they torture Book in order to get Michael to try and convince him, but Michael thinks quick on her feet. She manages to quickly disarm some of the guards and entrap her and Book in the force field, and then they later on are able to transport onto another section of the bridge. We see further scenes back in the nebula with Saru in his human form talking to Su'Kal, just trying to convince him again, basically to disarm the program within the nebula because they fear now this is what caused the source of the burn. We later on have a discussion with Culber and Adira that Su'Kal somehow had a genetic connection to the dilithium, and through the substance of sound space, I believe he was able to emit such a force that caused a massive gigantic event within the galaxy, and this is what caused the destruction of the dilithium as well. Again, very much of a strength. To be honest, I've never been convinced with this whole burn concept, and really the last episode where they confirmed that it was down to the essence of one child Kelpian, it doesn't resonate, it doesn't really valid or strain credibility, but due to the pace and the energy of the episode, you just continue on with it. We see later on Michael, she's on the ship and she manages to transfer a message to Tilly and the rest of the crew, asking them to go into a nacelle, which is essentially breaking up the warp drive, because at the time the Discovery is in warp travel and the other ships of the Federation are trying to chase them down, so they want to destroy the warp drive in order to stop this so that Starfleet can back up with them. We then get more action set pieces and shootouts as we see Michael and Book fighting off the rest of the crew. We see a very decent encounter, a decent fight scene I would say between Michael and Osayara. they're throwing hits and blows and shooting each other through. There was that scene when Osayara pushes Michael into the kind of holographic substance, and just when you think that she's completed the job and she's killed Michael, she waits a while, but of course Michael somehow was able to emerge back out of the substance and she stuns her with the shot. So we all knew, of course, that any fight between Osayara and Michael was always going to come out victorious. I think, again, this is another perhaps critical flaw of this episode, just how easy it was for the Discovery crew to kind of defeat the forces and regain control of the ship. So Michael, again, she transfers another message to the crew, basically ordering them back to the bridge. So they've essentially regained control of Discovery. And again, another disappointing aspect, because as we all know from the previous episodes, Tilly was assigned as captain or second in command. But of course, when the crew are back together again, she essentially puts Michael in charge. And I think it's a disappointing aspect. Once again, it's propelling Michael to the forefront of events at the expense of other characters involved. Now you might say, well, Michael is the commander, she's more experienced, but I think again it just regresses the other characters, that Tilly didn't even at least try to come up with some sort of plan or suggestion. She just instantly let Michael take control. So they further on with their plans now, and essentially they are in the much bigger ship of the Vidrian, and Michael has a plan of when she wants to drop the warp core of Discovery and use then Booker to control the spore drive so they can expand out of the Vidrian and go back and rescue the others within the nebula. And it's very interesting development again, because now if we go on in the future, it kind of renders the importance of Stannis, because he has always been a crucial character within the series because he's the only one who can control the spore drive. But now we see Book is able to make the jump and control the spore drive. So what does this promise for Stannis going forward and his significance within the show? We don't know, we will wait and see. But they make the jump, and we get that seemingly climatic scene where we essentially see the childhood memory of Sakal, and we learn that it was essentially his mother dying which caused his huge outbreak of emotion, which then caused the destruction of the whole dilithium within the galaxy. And as I stated before, it really is a unsatisfactory conclusion to what was really a very undemanding storyline to begin with. The burn, you know, it never really felt compelling in the first place, the origin of the burn or the true importance of it. And I think just to have it go out in this way, you know, it's very much of a stretch that one child's outbreak of emotion is enough to disrupt the events within the entire galaxy. You know, you consider how big the place the galaxy is, and the one child is able to affect it all. You know, again, it's very much of a stretch, even though for a science fiction show, you know, we normally associate Star Trek to have a lot more in terms of logic and sensibility and credibility, and this whole burn aspect never really convinced me in the first place. But essentially they managed to transport everybody on board. They disrupt the holographic simulation of what was controlling Sakal, and essentially now Osayara forces are all defeated, everybody survived. We basically have a happy ending, and that's really the conclusion of this storyline. We see the after effects where Saru now has departed from the Discovery. He wants to help Sakal back on Kelmanar and really getting back in touch with his own feelings and emotions. And I was disappointed by that, and I think a lot of fans of Discovery may be disappointed by that, because I think Saru was probably one of the most liked and favourite characters within Discovery, and I think we all agreed when they made him captain it was the right choice. I've never believed that Michael should be captain. I always preferred Saru because he was much more level-headed and he had a far more respect of protocols and regulations within Discovery. So I think it's very disappointing to have him seemingly depart the show. I mean, we never know, Saru may come back in some capacity within season 4, so we wait and see. But I just think, why would you make that move? Why would you have Saru depart if you're going to have him come back and take over the reins early on within the 4th season? So I think it's pretty much of a definitive move. So we basically get a montage with Michael describing now how the unity of commands that Osayara was trying to negotiate at the the last couple of episodes, that's been completely fractured now, and we see the likes of the Vulcans and the Navir and the Romulans. They're all coming together now, and seemingly now this is the beginning of the Federation kind of reforming again with other races and cultures. And then we get the scientists at the end, who we saw at the beginning of season 3, the scientist guy who was waiting on that station for so many years for somebody to contact him, and now he once again reconnects with Michael. So this is some kind of cyclical way of showing that this is how we begin going forward for this new future. So of course, now that Saru has departed with Su'Kal, they need a new captain, and of course it ain't going to be Tilly, is it? So it is Michael. The Admiral gives his approval for her to take over the reins as Discovery, same as Saru did. Michael says initially she'd like to wait till Saru comes back. They weren't going to do that, of course. They were going to make her captain. So that is the final shot. We see Burnham assuming the rank of captain, and we see the Star Trek Discovery crew all in their new grey and yellow outfits. I preferred the blue outfits, to be honest. I didn't really like the design of these new outfits. Whether that stays throughout season 4 or not, we wait and see. But essentially Burnham now assumes control, and she uses her own catchphrase, "Let's fly," and then the crew go forward ahead for season 4. So that's really, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, a pretty standard and well-rounded, I suppose, conclusion. It felt really insignificant if you compare it to the previous 2 finales of these seasons of Star Trek Discovery. They were a lot more, if you like, explosive and spectacular, and just felt a lot more significant. I think this finale, as I mentioned, was very much by the numbers. Everything was rounded up, tied up very well. There was no cliffhanger or end credit scene, I believe, to keep you anticipated for season 4. Maybe this was made at the time when they weren't sure they were going to get a 4th season, so that's why they kind of rounded it off and had Michael assume the rank of captain. So we'll wait and see what happens in terms of season 4. I will probably talk about my more extended thoughts when I do the season review of Star Trek Discovery. All I can mention that in this finale was, I would say, half decent, maybe very underwhelming in terms of finale episode. And yeah, I'm just disappointed at some of the outcomes, and the fact that now we're rendering Stannis less important, and also now we seemingly got rid of Saru, and I much prefer Saru as the captain than to Michael. But who knows, maybe in season 4 they will make Michael a much more of a more aware personality, and she can't just keep charging in and overriding everybody. I suppose it will be interesting now she's in charge, where she has full control, because I think one aspect that was annoying a lot of fans is how she was constantly undermining and over talking Saru in the conversations with the Admiral. But now Michael Burnham's in charge herself, so I suppose nobody's going to get a say at all. So will anybody actually challenge or undermine Michael when she's in this authoritative position as captain? So we will wait and see in the long run. But on the finale episode 4, pretty standard, not terrible, but just not exceptional, I would say. Nothing really groundbreaking. Everything was just rounded off really nicely and just felt routine, and a pretty standard finale overall. So let me know what you think in the comments below. What did you think about this finale, and overall, what did you think about the season as a whole? Do you think it was an improvement over season 2? Do you think it was less convoluted, less problematic, or did you feel it was less substantial? There was much less of a spectacle. We had far less in terms of weight and themes and concept throughout. What did you think about the burn? Did you think it played out very well? Do you like the fact that they kind of rounded it off this episode? They didn't carry it forward into the next season, or do you feel it needed a lot more in terms of its concept and its world building to really mean something and carry more significance? As I mentioned before, I will carry out my season 3 and I'll probably upload that next week for now. But overall, this season finale was a very average, by the numbers episode. So that's it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please hit and like those subscribe buttons and help me continue to grow this channel and provide you with more high quality content in the long run. But that's it for now on my review of the season 3 finale of Star Trek Discovery. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.